January 6, 2021 will always be remembered as a critical moment in American history. On that day, a violent mob attacked the Capitol in an attempt to overturn the results of a fair election. This led to a national crisis, with many people questioning the actions of key figures involved. At the center of it all was then President Donald Trump, whose refusal to accept the election outcome caused a serious threat to the democratic process. This story is not just about one day. It represents a struggle between honesty and deceit, and between manipulation and standing up for what's right. Vice President Mike Pence was also caught up in this situation, facing intense pressure to act in a way that went against his own beliefs. Trump's efforts to pressure Pence into supporting false claims about the election show how far he was willing to go to hold on to power, even if it meant undermining the Constitution. As the chaos erupted outside, Trump's chilling tweets further ignited the flames of insurrection. He directed public ire at Pence, blaming him for the very actions he had orchestrated. This crucial moment underscores the urgency of understanding the motives and consequences of Trump's behavior, and how they intertwined with Pence's actions. Throughout this ordeal, Pence stood firm, bound by his oath of office, rejecting Trump's demands at every turn. His steadfastness raises critical questions about the nature of leadership and integrity in the face of overwhelming pressure. In the days that followed, the fallout from January 6th revealed not just a physical attack on the Capitol, but a deeper, systemic threat to democracy itself. This will explore the intricacies of this narrative, diving into the pivotal moments that defined a nation and the characters who played their roles in this dramatic saga. As we unpack the events leading up to that fateful day, we must confront the profound implications of what transpired and reflect on the lessons learned in our ongoing journey toward justice and accountability. Leading up to January 6th, there were a lot of tensions building up that eventually led to a national crisis. In the last days of 2020, Donald Trump kept saying that the election was rigged and that he won because of what he was saying. A lot of his supporters didn't trust the election results. This created a really tense and dangerous situation. Trump didn't just say these things by accident. He wanted to rile up his followers and get them to take action, which ended up being really bad. As the time got closer to when the election results would be officially confirmed, there was a lot of pressure on Vice President Mike Pence. Trump kept telling Pence that he had the power to change the election results. He even threatened to publicly criticize Pence if he didn't do what Trump wanted. This put Pence in a tough spot. This tension came to a head in the hours leading up to the insurrection. In a chilling turn of events, as rioters began their assault on the Capitol, Trump took to Twitter to further undermine Pence. His infamous tweet stating that Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should be done to protect our country and our Constitution was more than just a rebuke. It was a spark igniting a volatile situation. At that moment, Trump was not just abandoning his vice president, he was actively stoking the anger of a mob determined to disrupt the democratic process. As rioters breached the Capitol, Pence was evacuated to a secure location, a direct consequence of the very threats Trump had unleashed. This juxtaposition of Trump's words and Pence's actions reveals a stark narrative arc, one of betrayal and loyalty, of a leader who chose personal interest over the preservation of democracy, and a vice president who, despite immense pressure, adhered to his constitutional duty. The details of that day illustrate a chilling reality: how easily the machinery of democracy can be manipulated and threatened when power is prioritized over principle. In the wake of the Capitol riot, the fallout from Trump's actions reverberated throughout the political landscape, exposing deep fractures within American democracy. The implications of Trump's conduct were not just about one day, they represented a broader and more troubling trend, an ongoing assault on truth and the electoral process itself. The insurrection served as a culmination of weeks, even months, of deliberate disinformation campaigns that had created a fervent belief among his supporters that the election had been stolen. The false narrative about the election being rigged continued to gain traction after January 6th, becoming a rallying cry for Trump loyalists. Trump's refusal to acknowledge the violence and his insistence on the election being fraudulent fostered a toxic environment where loyalty to him was prioritized over truth. Republican leaders' support of Trump's claims and refusal to uphold democratic principles further polarized the electorate. Trump's control over the narrative empowered his supporters to defend his legacy at any cost, posing posing a significant threat to the democratic process. Trump's post-insurrection statements further illustrated this concerning trend. By lionizing the rioters and framing them as heroes, he reinforced the narrative that the electoral process was under siege, perpetuating the cycle of misinformation and distrust. The consequences of this manipulation extended beyond politics. They seeped into the very fabric of American society, fostering division and animosity among citizens. As the nation grappled with the aftermath of January 6th, it became clear that the battle for democracy was far from over, with the stakes higher than ever. The aftermath of the Capitol riot revealed the dangerous intersection of political loyalty and misinformation, leading to a concerning normalization of extremism within American political discourse. Trump's behavior in the wake of the insurrection, coupled with his continued endorsement of the rioters, served to encourage far-right factions within the Republican Party. The language of insurrection and rebellion became a part of the mainstream political narrative, as many elected officials refrained from condemning violence in favor of appealing to their voter base. This was not merely a response to a single event, but rather a reflection of a broader shift in ideology that prioritized power and allegiance over democratic principles. The ramifications of this shift were evident in subsequent political campaigns, where candidates increasingly leveraged divisive rhetoric to garner support. Trump's influence permeated the party, creating an environment where questioning the legitimacy of elections became standard practice. The narrative of a stolen election persisted, morphing into a foundational belief for many Republican voters. This created an echo chamber of misinformation that not only undermined trust in electoral processes, but also positioned those who adhered to traditional values of democracy as outliers. Moreover, the backlash against those who dared to speak out against Trump's actions was palpable. Republican leaders who expressed concern or called for accountability faced intense pressure from their constituents, revealing the extent to which fear of political retribution stifled dissent within the party. This environment of intimidation effectively silenced many voices that could have challenged the growing tide of extremism, allowing radical ideologies to flourish unchecked. As the 2022 midterm elections approached, the consequences of this manipulation became increasingly evident. The focus shifted from addressing pressing issues facing the nation to a narrative centered around loyalty to Trump and the alleged theft of the 2020 election. Candidates who aligned themselves with Trump's rhetoric gained traction, while those who advocated for unity and a return to democratic norms found themselves marginalized. This dynamic further illustrated the challenge facing the United States in the years following January 6th. The path forward was fraught with uncertainty as the country grappled with a growing divide fueled by misinformation and extreme partisanship. The struggle for the soul of American democracy was no longer an abstract concept. It had transformed into a pressing reality that demanded attention and action. As citizens and leaders alike contemplated the future, the stakes could not have been clearer. Preserving democracy would require a collective effort to combat misinformation and uphold the values that underpin the nation's identity. As we reflect on the tumultuous journey that began on January 6, 2021, it becomes increasingly clear that the events surrounding the Capitol riot were not just a singular incident, but rather a pivotal moment in the ongoing struggle for the soul of American democracy. The erosion of trust in our electoral system, the rise of extremist ideologies, and the manipulation of political narratives have created a landscape fraught with challenges that we must confront head-on. The question remains, what does it mean to be a citizen in a democracy when the very foundations of that democracy are under siege? In the wake of these events, it is essential to recognize that the responsibility to safeguard our democratic values lies not solely with our elected officials, but with each and every one of us. We must hold our leaders accountable, demanding transparency, integrity, and a commitment to the truth. Our voices are powerful tools for change, capable of drowning out the echoes of misinformation and fear that threaten to undermine the principles we hold dear. Every conversation we have, every vote we cast, and every community we engage with shapes the narrative of our democracy. It's important to foster critical thinking, engage in respectful discussions, and seek common ground to bridge divides. Let's remember the lessons from January 6th, honor those who stood up for democracy, and remain vigilant in upholding our shared values. The journey toward restoring faith in our democracy requires collective effort, resilience, and unwavering commitment. Together, we can create a future where truth prevails over deception, where unity triumphs over division, and where every voice matters. The stakes are high, but so too are the possibilities. Let us rise to the challenge, forging a path toward a brighter, more inclusive future for all Americans. The time for action is now, and together we can reclaim the promise of democracy and build a society that truly reflects the values we cherish.